your second question, David, is can you use the Megadeals discipline on smaller deals than that? Absolutely, 100%. So I would say the literature on medium-sized enterprise deals is very simplified. So what we hear all the time is that a lot of scale-ups and mid-sized B2Bs are applying our discipline on deals that are in the range of $500,000. And I wouldn't say the small B2B deals, but they're definitely in the mid-size and up. A few of the social selling tactics, etc., can be applied on any kind of deal, and the same around the thinking around content and messaging. But let's not go too deep in that. But definitely very applicable for medium-sized deals. Yeah, sorry. A few more words about David and Bora. They have an amazing track record. They've been leaders within American Express. They've been kind of top 1% of the sales list. They've gone to all the trophy trips around the world. And Bora also led the sales training team globally minus the US at American Express. And David has been Nordic managing director for American Express. And they've been doing, I've been involved in deals in the kind of 10, 20, 30, $40 million kind of range. But David and Bora, well, I've been advising way larger deals than that, but I've been a part myself in slightly, well, still mega deals, but not in the $1 billion level. But that is something that David and Bora have done quite a lot of. So, and this is illustrating that difference. So we actually saw that there's a huge difference between the deals on the right-hand side of the spectrum, kind of the airplane deals and bridges and large outsourcing deals, etc., compared to selling copy printers or copywriters, as Bora sometimes say. And I'll go
funny
through.
Story, actually, Christopher.
Yeah.
You may want to just share it if you want to. I don't mind. I think it's a funny story.
Yeah, we had a talk with a large organization, and on the call there were actually a few copywriters from the marketing team. And Bora was like, "Yeah, there's a huge difference between selling military airplanes and selling copywriters." And I was like, "Well." Anyway, that's another story. So the Megadeal discipline is not just sales, it's not just marketing, it's a blend of quite a few things. And we're looking at orchestration rather than dialogue techniques. So we include the 5 cornerstones. I'll quickly run through them in a bit. How do you develop the brand platform if you want to do large deals? How do you develop the messaging architecture? Of course, how do you run the dialogue techniques? But that's covered by a long list of sales and marketing books. So we kind of just summarize that. How do you do enterprise social selling when you have the DNA of the large deals? And how do you run account-based marketing, which we'll cover quickly today? How do you do contracting and financing? Yeah, so at first I'll go through some of the DNA of a large deals because that is setting the scene, leading us into why we do recommend to do ABM in the way we do it. So first of all, and this is something, you'll now see something that we cover in 2 full days. So first of all, a large deal has to align with the customer's key initiative. Typically, large organizations have 3 to 5 key initiatives or key strategies or big bets that you guys called it at MX. Initiatives that are leading you from your current state into your wanted state. And if you don't fit into a key initiative, there are no big money available. So normally the key initiative is a good thing is that they're driving the company, the target account from where they are to where they want to go. It's already allocated money and people into these key initiatives. So if you want to go for the big money, make sure that your first qualifiers does this prospect have a key initiative where we fit? And the second one, and this is also, sorry, the key initiative piece is actually important also connected to messaging because we can use words from the key initiative where we do have a fit in our ABM programs. And the second piece is understanding and mapping out the ecosystem and not just stakeholders within the target account, but also strategy consultants, various technical solution vendors outside of the account that has an influence on your deal. Some cases, even politicians. We got, for example, at Climate, we got the ministers from the Canadian government to take selfies with us and put it on Twitter. you need to infiltrate quite a large ecosystem, not just in the target account, but also outside of the target account. And this is a key mistake that I see many ABM practitioners are doing. They are thinking, they've seen too much the Gartner statistics saying there are 6.7 decision makers. The problem with that is actually, let me go back to that picture. So the problem with that number is it's the average when you look at the whole range. So when you look at the average number of stakeholders involved in a deal, comparing a copywriter or a military airplane deal, yeah, the average number is probably 6.7. But if you're in the mid to high range of complexity and size, you're most of the time looking at 50, 100, 150, 200. We've seen cases where 499 people have signed NDAs. So the stakeholder group is super large. It is not just the 6.7 stakeholders. Sorry for going back. Let me go catch up again. So understanding the ecosystem and then driving consensus at scale. So no large decisions are being made with just a few stakeholders. We need to run the Obama campaign. We need to win votes across the whole scale of the target account and also outside the target account. So sometimes we need to pinpoint, again, strategy consultants, local like municipality offices, things like that. So we need to understand the ecosystem around the deal. We need to influence them, much like you do in a presidential campaign. And then the fourth one is to find and develop Trojan horses. Trojan horses are the people that give you vital information throughout your sales journey. And they're typically further down in the organization. Sophia, a good friend of ours at Accenture, she calls them mushrooms because they grow in the dark. They're the silent people, normally not taking so much airtime in the big meetings, but their way of exercising power is that they give you vital information so you can navigate and win the deal. And you need to have many of them, and you need to look out for the double agents, but that's another webinar. The fifth one is to mitigate customer risks. So large deals, and this is a quote from Bora, I hate to admit that, but value and differentiation takes you through the door. Risk mitigation is closing deals. So when you put large amounts and large changes on the table, it's so much focused on mitigating risk. It's not equally much about increase the upside. And this is something that everyone we've interviewed in the process have said that is the case. So you really need to know how to mitigate risk. And this actually leads into the ABM piece. You need to think risk mitigation also in the communication around account-based marketing. So you can use the first one, align with key initiatives. You can use words that they have in the key initiative. You put it into your ABM program. Based on the understanding the ecosystem, you realize which are the stakeholders, both the corporate entities and the organizations around the deal, but also the actual target account, obviously, and also the relevant stakeholders. And then you use some of the techniques that we'll talk about soon to create consensus at scale. And the fifth one, mitigate customer risk. You can build in risk mitigation in the communication. So 1, 2, 3, and 5 are very connected to account-based marketing. Finding Trojan horses, yes, that can be enhanced by account-based marketing because you can kind of fish out more Trojan horses, but it's kind of more a by effect. Right. Okay, so one key message, this is vital for larger deals and it's also important for ABM. A sales funnel for a normal company is a V. In the large deal world, the sales funnel looked more like a T. So we need to disqualify cases relatively early in the process and put a lot of resources on the ones that we do focus on. So that's why it looks like a T. So we should have a very high win rate on the ones we actually do spend money on. All Megadealers we've interviewed are really committed to disqualifying cases early. Right. So a quick reference case. So what we did in Climb On, where we increased the order intake by 3,000%. We also got 10 times oversubscribed NASDAQ listing. We got Bill Gates, Richard Branson, Jeff Bezos, etc. as investors. We actually moved the company from being sales driven to being marketing driven. And we put more money behind behind marketing than we did behind sales. So we actually reduced some of the sales staff. And now in pretty rocky times, this is a message some of you can bring with you. It's sometimes more profitable. I would say in the B2B world, it's almost always too little spend on marketing and too high spend on the sales force. So by reducing the sales force and move some of the money into marketing, you can have a tremendous effect. So in this case, we actually didn't increase the total go-to-market spend, but we increased the performance significantly. We focused a lot on doing one video and article per week, and we used campus advertising, social media, and PR as the main channels to reach the audience with that content. Right, let's take these learnings into how to apply ABM. So first of all, focus your ABM programs on your highest priority accounts. It is not a lead generation tactic. It is a tactic to infiltrate larger organizations with whom you want to make large deals. There are many vendors in the market that are abusing the term ABM, and I sometimes, when I was on the vendor side of ABM, I call them list-based marketing. So where you're targeting your 500 or your 1,000 accounts. In my world, yeah, that's targeted marketing, but it's not account-based marketing. So we need to think more in a more focused way. So what's a classical mistake is that marketing is running in a different direction than sales. But for ABM, and probably most of you on this call agree to this, we focus the marketing resources on the same accounts where we have the sales resources. So what we did at ClimbOn, we shrunk the market down to 95 top priority accounts, and they should have an average. So we should be able to do at least $40 million worth of business per account for them to qualify. They should have at least one green initiative in the key initiatives to qualify, etc. We have quite a few criteria, but we did a lot of research and shrunk the market. And then you say, well, then you shrink the potential. No. You increase the win rate significantly, and you can use less resources, but have a very high effect on your bottom line and top line. And it's worth remembering that the big combination here is to use marketing for more shallow relationship, but a bigger audience. And for the deep relationship, we use salespeople, but still targeting the same accounts. This is a picture you can screenshot if you like. It's the kind of simplified recipe for running a smart ABM thinking. So build your content and your messaging around the messaging architecture from the Megadeals book. Produce primarily videos and articles based on that, and distribute it via account-based advertising, various social selling techniques, PR, and then obviously sales meetings. So account-based advertising, it is all about, So I'm going to share with you a few of the techniques. What is important to remember is that probably some of you on this call want to have the super advanced stuff. And ping me after this webinar and we'll set up an advanced session. So I'll cover what I've seen though, and I know that Bora and David agree, we see small islands of high sophistication in many organizations. So what is the key though for winning is to take really successful strategies and methods and techniques and get them to scale and get a lot of people on board. And when it comes to ABM, I recommend to start with the advertising piece. So targeting the IP numbers and also a few social media attacks. I'll cover that soon. But kind of the media play in account-based marketing. Why? Because for Megadeals, it's a lot about winning the consensus war. If we're winning the votes within the target account, we're pretty well off when the big battle is coming. So I recommend to start with the media part of account-based marketing, which you could call account-based advertising. So target the IP numbers of the 95 or whatever, 27 accounts that you prioritize, use the same through LinkedIn and Instagram, etc., and start there. And this is how it can look. So here's us on a few various media. So we appear with videos and articles and ads on a combination of normal news sites, etc., and social media channels. And this is an example from ClimbOn. And I'll share some of the learnings here. So instead of focusing your IP target ads on click-throughs, so it's more important to have a small impact by just the ad itself and to influence a larger group of people than to have a click-through that just 0.5% of everyone seeing it is doing and have a big impact on them. So the work that the IP target ads is doing is to influence the largest group of stakeholders with more lightweight content. So in this case, we're using some references here. This is Richard Branson in the left-hand corner here. We're pushing some awards to reduce the sense of risk. And we're also profiling. There's a guy called Johan here in the picture down on the right. We're profiling the key people involved in the deal towards that target account. So we make some of the profiles that are really focusing on, so in this case, this is for Maersk, the big shipping company. So we use the shipping people, we promote them to Maersk, and when they have sales meeting, they got comments like, "Oh, you have time to meet us? I mean, you seem really busy, and we feel really honored to meet you." So we're using media to build up superstars, and then people say, "Well, what if they leave?" Yeah, but what if they leave because you're not taking care of them? A lot of Megadeals, actually, as a side note, have made a lot of complaints around the fact that it's always the CEO and the COO, et cetera, and the CFO that are taking the credit in media, so they're never seen. And a lot of human needs are based around love, being seen, being liked, pretty simple stuff. So I've noticed that in the organization where I've been working, if we put a lot of people in the team on stage in media, that's a big bonus. That's worth sometimes more than money. And technically, what you do is that you detect these vendors like Insync that will come soon and make a few examples. They detect the IP number. So when a person from Maersk, in this case, are going into any kind of news site, their IP number is being detected, and Insync and other vendors are then shooting an ad into that media space based on that IP number. So it's pretty sophisticated under the surface, but it's actually in reality easy to use, right? And why do you use ABM? Well, first of all, there are a lot of stakeholders that we mapped out inside the organization and outside that we can't reach. We can't reach them with people, and even if we could, that would be tremendously expensive. So we need to reach beyond the sales meetings. And also, as you know, the internal selling of your customer is really tricky. You probably explain something to someone, and then when you hear them explain your story, you're going like, "Oh shit, that was not what I said." So we need to repeat certain messages many times, and this is a piece where media is doing a good job. I need to hide this. So we can better position the company and how it matches the key initiatives, etc., using ABM. We can also show things like market leaderships, etc. And as I said before, driving consensus at a larger scale. And also, it does help to generate leads, but I wouldn't put that as the primary goal, though. It's kind of a by effect. And then reduce the perceived risk by doing the media play. So first, account prioritization. I want to comment this in particular. What you need to do when you do ABM, you need to decide which accounts to go for. Do not, in the marketing team, start this exercise alone. Your first location to go to internally is the head of sales or the people leading the largest accounts, and you're sitting down with them. That's your account list. Do not start with a greenfield list. That is not what ABM is all about, and it will not be very successful. You will be measured on lead generation, and that is not where ABM really has its role. Secondly, set up the goals for the account-based marketing program, and I recommend to align them with sales. It's not always easy to get through internally because some sales leaders and CEOs are really thinking that marketing is all about leads, and that's a huge mistake. We've seen it in our Megadeals research. We see it at proof when we do the regression analytics on big go-to-market mixes. marketing is playing a role throughout the customer journey and also on the existing accounts where we want to grow. And decide on the channel mix and set the messaging architecture based on the this is actually a chapter in the book that I'm really proud of. The messaging architecture in the book gets a lot of compliments. It's very hard to explain in just a few minutes, but when you read the book, if you have already, I hope you really like that piece. It's a systematic approach on how to build messaging and content for marketing and sales throughout the whole customer journey, not just to generate leads, but throughout actually closing the deal and thereafter. And then make sure you get sales and marketing alignment. And the key starting point here is to get sales and marketing focusing on the same accounts, and then measure, follow up, and improve. So these are some examples. I'll go through a few, and then Sarah will go through a few as well, and then I'll wrap it up in the end. So this is a program we're doing at Proof. We're targeting a really large B2C and B2B companies where they already use marketing mix modeling to determine their marketing mix or their go-to-market mix. So what they struggle with is to get marketing mix modeling to scale because it's dependent on very, very senior analyst teams that are costing a lot. So we're running our ABM programs towards the Philips of the world and those kind of accounts, big retailers, big CPG brands, and a few e-commerce companies, and large B2B companies as well. So these are some of our ads, and we're using a mix of videos and another type of content. So a quick why we've chosen to have Insync on this call and show a few examples. So what I really like about Insync is that they've built the offering around being able to set specific budgets per account, really set a unique ad mix per account, and also blending IP targeted ads with social media targeting. So because I think it's really key to reach the stakeholders, not just with display ads, but also through social media. And nowadays, people are really active, as you know, on social media. So we're spending quite a high proportion of our time in social media. That's why Sarah and Insync. Do you want to say a few words, Sarah? I'll come back then later.
Yeah, I think we're on there. Can you hear me, Christopher?
Yes.
Good, excellent. So we've unmuted, and I'm going to hand over to Sarah. Hi, Sarah. Welcome. It's so great to have you.
Thank you. All right. Hello, everyone. So my name is Sarah, and I will represent Insync here today. And I am the head of sales here in Sweden. I'm pretty new in Insync, but we are working with a methodology, and it's aligned with the Megadeals method. So, okay, all right, I'm ready. Let's go, Chris.
Yes.
Yes. And we work with some really big companies, and they have long sales processes and complex processes. So I will have some examples here today, and I have 3 examples, and they will all show the first stage of the ABM plan, actually. All right.
Right.
Yeah, so the first one, we have Renewal. So as you can see, Renewal provides intent retargeting for CE brands at major retailers. And the difference between retargeting and intent retargeting is, it's a difference between the two of them. And what Renewal wants to do is to create an awareness about this and inform their target groups about this. So they need to inform both informal and formal stakeholders, and we use IP targeting to shorten the sales process, and we want to drive consensus at scale, so that's why we are using IP targeting. But also combined with this, they are using social selling. So they are working with thought leadership on LinkedIn. And as you can see, the examples here, we have the first banner. So the first banner is actually one, but we have 2 slides to it. So we start with a question like the best way for a brand to generate sales, and then it will turn into Renewal, brand sponsored retargeting. So we are working with the messaging and the communication plan here. And also for the other example, we have the easiest way for an e-tailer to get free sales driving traffic, and it will turn into target consumers from e-tailers with a proven intent to buy. So we work with the content and the communication plan. All right, so next one, Chris.
Yes.
Yes, we have Giant Leap. So Giant Leap is an IT company who develops different technology solutions, and they operate in the Nordic market. And a common problem they have seen is that within their targets, there are many who have the problem with needing many systems or not having any system at all, for example, scheduling or salary, etc. So they developed a complete system called M Solution. And what they need to do is to warm up the market and create awareness around M Solutions toward the specific accounts. And we are working again with awareness. So we are building the messaging around this. So we have the first banner is Swedish, and the other banner is Norwegian. So we are using this to create awareness here. All right. So next one, we have Powell. And Powell is an international software company working towards different industries and sectors. So they know that the energy market has some challenges because it's changing. And they want to target 7 companies in the energy sector in 3 new markets in Europe. So to push this out, they are to the specific targets on these markets. We are working with the messaging again, and this is actually one banner, the first 3. So we are first talking about some trends in the industry, like the speed in the power intraday market is increasing, and so we're focusing on the trends coming. And then the banner will change into are your tools fast enough? So we have a little challenge to them. And then we will go with Powell has state-of-the-art software to automate energy asset optimization. And this we will use to build awareness and interests. And it's also not enough to just say we have the best product, because if you're going out to a new market, you need to build trust. So you use a reference, and it's good to use an industrial relevant reference. So here we have Enel will use Powell to increase revenues from power generation. So if you say, okay, our competitor Enel are using Powell, so they must be good. So you're building trust. You can use it like that.
Great.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you.
And also in the mix, we strongly recommend to blend in LinkedIn, but actually also in some cases, both Facebook and Instagram. It's a lot about creating the trust and the consensus. And some people that I meet, they brush off the media play in ABM too easily. But I think it's because we have a focus on MQLs and SQLs. That is not the domain of ABM. And when we work with really sophisticated companies on this, they actually understand that. So the salespeople's job is to pinpoint the 7 to 20 key targets. Marketing's job is to educate a broad audience. So we need to use the strength of both. Oops. So these are some recommended complementary tactics. So first of all, a really simple tactic is to do something we in the book called bee swarming. So please visit the right stakeholders in the top accounts on LinkedIn. Sounds like a banal tactic, but it's really effective. So if you do it regularly over a long time, after a while, you do have quite a substantial amount of first-hand contacts in that priority account. And then when you blend that with dropping very insightful content, you kind of grow your position gradually. So another tactic that I can strongly recommend, I mean, in the book we have this much deeper, but there are a few tricks that are working really well to infiltrate an account. On the first one, the most obvious one is to write about them. So if I write an article about, let's take Sarah's example, Enel or NG or some of the big energy companies, and I also mentioned maybe 10 different stakeholders from that account that are on my target list, guess what? They are reading them. So if you go to my LinkedIn profiles, Christopher Engman, or you can go to Maziar Nodey, for example, at Proof Analytics. He has an article about the top players in the e-commerce industry. And those tactics are really, really simple and really effective. When you look in the statistics on those articles, you see that, for example, we wrote one that was really focusing on Maersk. So we had several hundred people from Maersk reading that article. So obviously, we reach out. Lunch and learn on site or via web is a really effective tactic. So share insights to the audience inside the account. And then actually, this sounds like a real outlier, but there are quite a few, especially companies that do real mega deals, that actually do outdoor advertising around the target accounts, key offices, and then obviously direct mail, email, and in-mail. But and I do mention the fifth one, but it's for many, they've made that into ABM, and yeah, that's fine, but it's not the key component of ABM. We need to win the consensus war, and that's easier done with the media play and thought leadership. So repeating the key success factors in a mega deal: align with key initiatives, understand and map the ecosystem, create consensus at scale, find and develop Trojan horses, and mitigate customer risks. The summary about why you do ABM: you can win bigger deals at a higher win rate. In the few examples where we've been allowed to measure this, is a very high difference. For Bisnode, for example, with the over a 2-year period, there was a 60% higher revenue per account compared to the test group. And use ABM along the life cycle, not for lead generation. And put your account leaders in the front, not just your C-suite, but actually the people that are facing the customer, and not just salespeople. It can also be project managers and those kind of stakeholders. And use content based on the mega deal messaging architecture, and put sales and marketing in the same room. And overall, I mean, this is maybe someone is representing sales side here. We are representing both, but we will see a strong trend again targeting fewer and better salespeople. So the salespeople that will survive will be really smart, really good. We'll have strong marketing around them, like we did at Climb, when we put more money on marketing than on the salespeople. But then we kept the really smart salespeople. So that was a successful formula. Thank you. Any questions?
So, Christopher, let me just jump in. First of all, thank you so much for sharing these insights around ABM. Clearly really useful. I think there's a lot of great nuggets. Obviously, it's difficult in 45 minutes to go into more details, but hopefully for those of you that have joined, you've got some key nuggets you can take with you. We have about 5 minutes left, so open for questions. So in the chat, because it will be absolute anarchy and chaos if we try to do this verbally, given we have about 70 people participating. But please do in the chat, if you have questions, do ask, and we'll try and get through some of them in the next couple of minutes. So if you have questions on anything that Christopher went through or that Sarah went through, please do ask in the chat. So Christopher, a question coming in from Christopher Hode. For the account-based ads, what type of metrics or intelligence do you provide sales to action?
I think to really quantify the effect of ABM, you need to use regression analytics. Now, this is a bit unbiased here, but I'm not only representing Megadeals, I'm also representing Proof Analytics. And we quantify how various tactics are giving an ROI and over which time period. The issue with ABM is that it's a long-term tactic. So what a lot of companies are struggling with, that they go, oh, I need to see results immediately. So they end up looking at generated leads, site traffic from that account, and those are all very short-term metrics. But either you measure those accounts just over a long time period, or you use a regression-based approach to quantify the effects of ABM compared to salespeople, compared to other types of tactics. I think to go the easier route, of course, yes, do look at the increased site traffic from the target accounts, do look at the leads generated, but I strongly recommend you to not build your fundamental metrics around lead generation, because that is not what ABM is about. And I'm sure that most of you on this call agree to that. It's about winning larger deals, growing existing accounts, making sales and marketing cheaper than it was before with higher win rates. And you get a ton of marketing for salespeople's salary. That's a truth. There's just an overbelief on feet on the ground.
Yeah, great.
So maybe, yeah, sorry.
No, please, go on, Chris.
No, there's no, so if you look at ABM isolated in the short term, those metrics are not going to give you much. You can use them as indicators, but do measure versus a test group over 2-year period, 2 years, or use a regression-based approach to quantify the effects. But the issue with ABM is that a lot of it is based on brand. And then some of you on the call will say, well, brand doesn't matter. It truly does. So the brand has a stronger impact on large deals than it has on consumer sales. That is proven by a lot of science.
Okay, great. Thanks. So there's a lot of questions coming in, which is really, really good. There's one interesting one. It says, how do you measure traction, Chris, right? So what are the KPIs what KPIs would you suggest to measure traction?
Well, wasn't that a little bit like the last question? Like in the early, yes, the early indicators, obviously site traffic from that account. Yes, you can measure downloads and things like that. The only point I'm trying to make is that do not use that as your key indicators of success internally, because then you will be driving the wrong behavior. You will be driving click-throughs instead of influencing the audience via the ads. Instead, try to make the ads strong. Make them send a big message and don't rely on click-throughs. That's an important decision to make. Should I drive clicks and sign-ups, or should I drive influence? I recommend influence, but that requires that you have the CEO, etc., that accepts and understand that ABM is a lot about building a long-term brand, but with a selected audience, and also increase that share of wallet, etc., over a long, long time. So yeah.
Cool. So, and questions coming through. Another one here is, do you have examples of articles and videos you made for the target account, or at least a structure for it?
Yeah. So I'll give you a boring answer. Go to my LinkedIn profile. There are quite a few. If you go and look in my newsfeed, there are quite a few videos there that are used to fulfill various pieces of the buying journey. They're also displayed in our ads at Proof Analytics. But then I also urge you to read the messaging architecture chapter in the Megadeals book. That is, well, probably the most appreciated chapter in our book, to be honest. That gives you very strong indications of what kind of content to use when, kind of building a systematic approach around not just sales meetings, but also content.
Okay, thanks, Chris. So let's see how we're doing for time. I think we have one or two more we could do.
We can also continue a few more minutes for those that can.
Absolutely. So for those of you that want to stay on and listen to some of these questions, we'll continue a few more minutes. For those of you who need to drop off, I see some people dropping off. I get it. Thank you so much for joining. I hope this has been useful. We will continue to do webinars around, the subject of Megadeals and the family of sales and marketing activities and tools around Megadeals. So stay tuned, and you will see more of them. And thanks a lot for joining today. So
we'll run a few more questions.
Yeah. For those of you who want to stick around and a few more questions, there's one that says, how do you approach the ecosystem mapping? Do you detail this process in the book?
Yes, absolutely. The quick answer is you can even do it on a blank paper. So some of the cases we've been looking at, they even have a war room where they have big like A4 papers on each person where they update it manually. Some companies are using various systems for it. You can use Excel. You can do some of it in LinkedIn Sales Navigator. But the mapping exercise is that the good thing about it is it's relatively simple. It's not an Einstein required process, but it's really very important. And always think bigger. Most people make the mistake of thinking, oh, we just need to convince the CIO, or we just need to convince these 5 guys, and then we're good. No. If you're trying to go for big numbers, you need to win the Obama war.
Okay, thanks, Christopher. So Victor asked the question around how do you measure traction and what KPIs, but he's also continuing to say, let me rephrase, right? So he said, consider you spend 90 to 95% on a few accounts. What warning flags are you using that tells you are doing it wrong, or you're going for the wrong account?
Salespeople. So the interaction with the salespeople focusing on that account that interaction needs to be intimate, and they are the ones that will pick up the signals. You will see a few things on your website, etc., but don't ever think that ABM is something that marketing does on its own. It is just not. It is a very symbiotic process with sales, and I'm sure most of you know that. So sales are picking up what are the latest and greatest gossip and talks internally in that account, and they need to feed that feedback back to you. So they'll tell you, actually, they're now talking about us compared to this competitor, so we need to run a few battle card messaging around it, etc.
Sorry, just responding to something. So there's another one here. Let's see. Thank you. A question from Sam. What's the minimum required monthly investment and minimum period to be able to get an effect that makes sense for ABM based on one account in, let's say, 5 main European markets?
Well, I wouldn't just do it for one account, but I typically recommend look at like 5 or more accounts, and the minimum budget, that's something that Sarah has to answer. I don't want to interfere with that. This is an important learning. ABM is not your Google search campaign. You can't spend pocket money on it. So at ClimbOn, we took more than half of the go-to-market budget on marketing, and more than 60% of the marketing piece was ABM spend. So we put a significant amount of money behind it. And if you really want to influence your top accounts where you're trying to make a larger deals, you probably already work with them, you want to grow those accounts, or you have some new RFPs you're involved, you need to spend some serious money. And you need to look at it as an extension of sales, and you need to take it seriously. So maybe it's a bit extreme to put more than half of the go-to-market budget on marketing and 60% of that on ABM. But that's what I would recommend. That doesn't mean you will do that, but we also do the same at Proof Analytics. So we spend a tremendous amount of money on actually building the marketing machinery around some top salespeople. Not sure if I gave you a concrete answer, but I think Sarah can probably pick that up after this call and be very concrete with you. So let's move to the next.
Great, thanks. So still, actually, I'm really pleased. We've still got 46 people on listening. So this is really great. We appreciate it. Thanks for sticking around. So there was a question from Emma, I think from IBM, where she is asking, what were the results from the cases, Sarah, that showed? Now she's jumped off the call, I think, but maybe there are other listeners that want to get some insights.
Yeah, so just a short answer to that. all of these examples are ongoing cases for longer ABM plans, but what we can see so far is that they've started sales processes, and we got in contact with people who we could not reach before. So that's some of the things we can see so far for these examples.
I can comment on a result that we have with, for example, Megadeals. So we relatively frequently, combination of advertising and social selling we're doing, it means that we pretty often come into a call where they already know a lot about Megadeals. They already know. So you guys, Bora and David, when you walk around in the city, you're like, oh, there's Megadeals Bora. You kind of carry a brand name in your forehead. So by using a combination of social selling techniques, brilliant content, and account-based advertising and a few of the other ABM techniques, it's really working. It's really working. So, but I think you need C-level backing. Because there needs to be someone above sales and marketing that says, I truly back this. I dare to do it because of two reasons. First of all, we had done the Megadeals research. And secondly, I was already an investor in Proof Analytics, which is doing regression analytics. And we saw that actually all B2B companies except one are severely underinvesting into marketing. They're just such an overbelief, an old school overbelief on feet on the ground. Again, we'll see fewer salespeople, but better salespeople, and then backed by really heavy, great marketing. But that's kind of a strategy decision that a company needs to make, and do the kind of short test. No, don't do it. Just then skip it. Don't do ABM.
Agreed. Yeah, thanks, Chris. So we have another question here from Joel. I'm in an early stage startup with a really niche group of customers. Is it even possible for us to use ABM budget-wise? ?
Well, what's the niche? I give you an example from one of the companies where I'm a lead investor. So it's Lex 247. It's an ERP system for law firms. For that, so they don't even remotely do Megadeals, but to target a law firms using IP targeted ads it's a no-brainer. It's so simple, and all employees in those accounts are potential targets like user fees. So that is very much a niche market. So it's easier to use ABM in a niche market than in a very broad market, I would say, as a rule of thumb. What can become tricky, if you're selling to 5,000 really small companies, then it's less of a match. But if you're going for mid-size and larger accounts and it's a niche market, ABM is normally brilliant because you can become talk of the town, which we did at Climate, for example. We became really famous really fast within a very small list of accounts, but they don't know that they're the only ones being targeted. So they just think you're super famous.
Absolutely.
But I think, but Sarah can probably handle that in more detail afterwards.
Absolutely. Yeah, no. Okay, so I think we're actually coming to an end. So Emma's jumped off, very kind of her. She says, the book is awesome. Buy it. Take care. Gotta go.
Thank you. Thank you.
Ronald, thank you for your comment as well. Everyone get this book and listen to the podcast.
And please, for those who want to, because we have some examples on like outdoor advertising, some seriously smart infiltrating content, etc. Please reach out and we can talk about that. We try to make this webinar kind of, because again, I think a lot of companies benefit from ABM, but they try to do just too much at once. So make sure you cooperate tightly with sales and make sure you create content with sales. Make sure you do the media piece of ABM first, and then you can go into other kind of more bandwidth demanding tactics. ABM is really good because it's pretty simple, to be honest. Sorry, the advertising piece of ABM is pretty simple. So it doesn't require a huge change management process or anything. Sorry, so one last question.
Actually, Ron is writing. I realize now Ron's added something. So first of all, thanks for your feedback, Ron. But then Ron says, when you say write about the company, are there any examples of this? Do you write to them or about their industry?
About their industry, or actually about them. So if you make a portrait of, let's say you have a really large deal going on, or with, let's say Skanska, one of the largest construction companies, then you can write an article about Skanska. You can cover their history, you take pieces about their strategy, you portray like the 10, 15 most important stakeholders. The cool thing about that is that you can actually send, and you put it on LinkedIn Pulse, and of course on your website, but you can send the link to this article to each of them, and you say, hi, Bora, I've just written an article about Skanska. I'm fascinated by your company. And you are mentioned in the article. Could you double check that what I've written about you is correct? The response rate on that email is 95%. It's 95%. So even with the CEO profiles. So because people are really iffy about what you write about them. So they do respond. So we've had PR departments responding. So yeah, our CEO saw this, he liked it, he'd like to add this, and that. And you can then use this similar content in your ads, which is obviously, if you saw an ad about you, you'll be pretty interested. And obviously the article has to be professional, nuanced, insightful. It can't be any BS. It has to be good.
Great. Ron says, excellent. Thank you for answering. This is powerful. Love it. Thank you, Ron. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Ron.
Thanks for joining. You're on the other side of the Atlantic, so thank you. Okay, so I think we're going to draw a line there. Everyone, thank you so much for joining. If you want to reach out to us, you can find us on LinkedIn. You can find us on our website, megadeals.com. So please do reach out to us if you want to talk more about this and talk more about Megadeals. And stay tuned. There will be coming more webinars. Thank you so much. And from all of us to all of you, have a good rest of the week. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Bye.
Take care.